So I welcome you, Sharon Weinstein. Come on up. And honestly, Sharon, yeah, I love that music. It's so very nice, Eddie. Sharon has like a whole page here. She has like a whole page, and I'm like, oh my God, 3 o'clock is on my mind already, so we can't do the whole page. But as been in our industry for kind of a long time, I'm going to leave years out of it, kind of a long time, has certainly been there, done that, cares implicitly about you, and cares about the patients that we have the privilege of caring for. So I welcome you here today. Thrilled that you're here, and I know that this group, they won't go hard on you, but they're really smart. I'm just telling you, this is a really smart group that you have.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. I am inspired by what Regina just said. Are you? I am so inspired that I have a New Jersey license, and I want to say, sign me up. I've never heard anything like it. Absolutely amazing. You should be so proud. The other thing that I took away, and I'm not sure if you did, but I am also the online education manager for the innovation group for the American Nurses Association in my spare time. I heard so many innovations in this room alone and in her PowerPoint that tell me that the award ceremony, the process has just opened, and there is no reason why some of you and your system can't also be featured as award winners. You are on the cutting edge of really great things, and you need to tell people about it. The world does not know. I'm not sure the state of New Jersey knows. And I'm absolutely certain that the entire Mid-Atlantic region doesn't know, so let's get on board and tell someone. Are you committed to make that happen? Why not apply? I have this philosophy in life that if you don't ask, you don't get. That's the secret to my marriage. I asked, but if I didn't ask, you'd still be waiting. So sometimes you have to go out on a limb and really ask for something if you really want it. This is your opportunity to shine, but to tell other people about your ability to shine. I'm in awe. I just think you're amazing. So we're going to talk about the whole concept of unlocking the spark and igniting innovation. And I've heard so much about your organization so far. Basic disclosures, only because CE requires it. No conflicts of interest. I ask you to please, also because ANCC requires it, to consider implicit bias. So when we fail to advocate for nurse engagement, when we don't consider the impact of engagement on patient care outcomes and nurse retention, and when the work environment is not a culture of engagement. Let's move on. Learning objectives. After this session, I hope that you can identify the factors that contribute to engagement, that you discuss the impact of alignment with purpose-driven initiatives, and that you can list some strategies for sustaining and amplifying the engagement. So let's look at the process. Nurse engagement. What is it? We face challenges. We face huge challenges, and even though your numbers are good, when you look at the big picture of engagement, there are various ways to define what it is, why it matters, and what it is that keeps people coming in and coming back. So we're going to start with a couple of polls. Let's engage. Gentlemen? What does the word engagement mean to you? You can join this poll by either sending a text or clicking on the QR code up in the corner. What does engagement mean to you? And the words and the responses will populate, and we'll all see what you're all about. There are 3 polls in a row. What does engagement mean to each of you? Connected, community, trust, invested, participatory, involved, thoughtful. Wow. Fabulous responses. Community, trust, everyone. Everyone matters. Everyone contributes to the greater good, right? Involved. Okay, I think you have a good picture of what engagement means to you. Let's move on to the next one. What are the benefits of employee engagement? Is it improved performance? Is it less absenteeism? Is it reduction in burnout? What are those benefits? I see no absenteeism there. Okay. What are the benefits of employee engagement? I think we've got at 100%. Let's move to the next one and the last one. Engagement is measured by, is it exit or stay interviews? Is it number of hours worked? Is it one-on-ones with managers, surveys, performance appraisals, or none of the above? How do you measure engagement? Interesting. I'm really interested in the none of the above. I'd like conversations with each of you who said that after. Okay. We've got our numbers. Let's move on. We have a brief video for you. I want you to see what engagement means to me. Let's roll. Welcome to Engagement, the nursing experience nurses deserve. At the core of engagement sits value, culture, and team. From interdisciplinary collaboration to peer support, nurses rely on each other to navigate challenges, celebrate successes, and grow together. Engagement isn't about a one-size-fits-all solution, it's a journey. It requires commitment, collaboration, and continuous improvement. Together, we can create the nursing experience nurses deserve. Let's engage. Let's look at that journey. You heard me say that it's a journey. So what does that journey look like? Is it the road less traveled? What, in fact, is it? It's following a GPS. You all know what a GPS is. I don't know if some of you are old enough to know what a triptych is. It's what the AAA used to give out when you went on a trip and you would, oh, I see some, yes, I know what that is. They used to send it to you in advance. Of course, you had to request it in advance because there was no such thing as the internet. You had to go into a physical office, a bricks and mortar place to request it. And then they would tell you when to pick it up. And then you would pick it up and then you would sit and read it while you were driving to figure out where is the next service station, where is the next restaurant, where is the next anything. But now we all depend so heavily on a GPS. And a GPS is so much more than just a system to tell you where you're going. It's about the goals, it's about the process, it's about the solutions, it's about leadership practices. So let's look at those practices. It's about autonomy and empowerment, empowering the decision-making process. It sounds to me as if within your organization, everyone is involved at whatever level of the organization in that process. You have a voice and you are heard, and it is absolutely amazing. You heard the word transparent multiple times from Regina, and that's what it's all about. When you look at meaningful recognition, it's about recognition at the time of service, at the time that it matters, not 6 months down the line. Yes, it's very important to have Magnet, to have Daisy, to have everything, but you want someone to say, great job, I'm really pleased with what happened. What a great outcome. You deserve praise for what you brought to the organization today. And then fostering resilience and some element of work-life balance. I say some element because my colleagues tell me balance is not possible, but to me, I truly live, and you heard Regina say it, a balanced life. That's because I have lived the opposite life of working 100 hours a week, 3 countries a week in Eastern Europe, 2 weeks out of every month for 12 years living at O'Hare Airport, or in some no-name airport, flying on aircraft where you brought your own seatbelt and the seats weren't even bolted to the floor. You don't want to fly those. You don't want the criteria for the State Department to be, gosh, I never heard of that airline, but Sharon took it and she came back, so it must be okay. That is not K. So it's all about making meaningful connections, because connected employees, and you saw it under engagement, the word connections, it was the first word. Connected employees who feel part of the process are in fact engaged employees. And then it's about belonging. Everybody has a DE&I initiative. Not everybody has a DEI and B initiative, because it's fine to have diversity, equity, and inclusion, but people need to feel as if they belong. They need to feel a part of what Regina referred to as the family. They need to know that this is the place to be. And then it's aligning with purpose. Clarity of purpose increases engagement and productivity. Your work has to be anchored to your purpose. And then we uncover that spark. So there are both intrinsic factors, meaning you enjoy it, just being there is your reward. When you say to people, why did you become a nurse? What drew you to this profession? You often hear, it is my calling, it was my purpose, it's what made me who I am. I knew that I belonged here. When people ask me the question, I sometimes will say, well, nursing called me, I didn't call it, I didn't discover it. The profession called to me. So it's important, though, for inspiration and for engagement. And then there are extrinsic factors. It's on the external side. It's the reward, but you have to earn it. So what are the key elements and what does it take? It takes a passion for work. It takes the willingness to deliver what nurses want. And it takes emotional, cognitive, and behavioral involvement. So what does Gallup tell us? We're all familiar with the Gallup poll. You can use this QR code or use the tiny URL and explore what Gallup tells us. But in essence, I'll tell you what Gallup tells us because you already have this information, or at least the QR code. They say that there are 5 elements. The first one is purpose. You must infuse purpose. This is what nurses want. This is truly what nurses want. They want to put people first. They want to unlock engagement. They want to recognize and celebrate their successes. They want things to be probable and not possible. In my work in the former Soviet Union, they told me that I was often some beaten path because I thought that everything was possible. And the key message that I took away was, in our country, Sharon, everything is possible, just not everything is probable. Think about what's probable within your organization and what you can make happen. And then we often refer to best practices. My slides are going much faster than I intended, but best practices rather than next, we need to look at next practices. Next, we want to infuse development. Staff want to be in a place in which they feel as if their personal and professional development matters, that people care that they have an opportunity to grow and to excel in their field and to reach a new level. And they want to infuse coaching. I had this conversation with someone at a table in the back before we started. Staff want managers to be coaches, not managers. They don't want a boss. They want a coach. They want someone who will lead them along the way, open the door, mentor them, show them what's possible, prioritize people over the process, clarify expectations, and celebrate their wins. Because your win is someone else's win, isn't it? Your win is a win for all, and that's really what people want. They want to navigate the resources, they want the feedback to be such that regular feedback, those 360-degree evaluations are a thing of the past. Ongoing feedback on a regular basis is what truly matters. Ongoing feedback. Giving responses, telling people what's going on, helping them to understand the process. Not just waiting for a one and done once a year, but really letting people know where they stand, what needs to happen next, how you are going to reach out to help them to be able to do so. So they want to infuse conversation based on feedback. And then they want communication. Communication that is transparent, that speaks the truth. There is a reason why 22 years running, nurses are the most trusted professionals, isn't there? So if you have that trust process with your patients, certainly we saw it. I was ready to sign up for home care again, and I used to run the VNA of Dallas. I was ready. I could sign up for anything that was on that board. But if the patients trust you, your staff members, your colleagues should also be trusting you. And they want an infusion of strategy, and the strategy is your strengths, your vision, your values, and your mission. When we operate from a place of authenticity, we then discover strengths. And it is, in fact, a journey. It is a true journey because the GPS is what connects the dots. So let's look at that journey because we know now that the GPS can take us anywhere. And I invite you, because of that, to explore your own strengths. Click on this URL code and discover your own strength. Are you a manager? Are you a builder? Are you a merchant? Are you a banker? Are you an innovator? If you save the code now and click on it later, you can assess in a few minutes' time your own core values. And when you do so, you will get a personalized report via email to let you know what your strength points are, to let you know where you're going to excel and what perhaps you need to develop. And then part of that process was the vision, the values, and the mission. I go to so many organizations, especially as a former magnet appraiser, where I see the vision, the values, and the mission on the wall. But they never come off that wall. They never get into the hands of the people who need to read them. The people who are doing the work, the people who are the heart and soul of the organization, don't even understand what the values, the mission, and more are. So we can create an engaging experience. We can do that, but there is no quick fix. Nurse turnover doesn't sound like it's a huge issue in your organization, but we can build a culture of trust. And that is based on nurse centricity. So let's leave this up for a while, guys. And that's not on sign-on bonuses. You heard about the problems or the issues or the challenges, if you will, and the opportunities that exist certainly with travelers. Yes, they make a lot of money. I'm not willing to sign up for that job because I've spent my life traveling. I don't care to do that. But they make a lot of money. But is that the answer? Is it really the sign-on bonus? I don't think so. Is it the competitive salary? Is it work-life balance? Is it retirement plans? Is it shift differential? Is it childcare? Is it transportation? Is it parking that is free or certainly reduced cost? What can we do as an organization to make this a nurse-centric organization? What can we do to involve many of those factors that nurses truly want, to allow them to feel more valued, to feel more appreciated, to feel respected? What can we do to make that happen? And respite and wellness space is really important as well. I've worked in a lot of organizations that have created wellness space. I had the privilege of doing that at the University of Santa Thomas in the Philippines, in Manila, years ago, and it was a student nurse respite center. But everybody needs downtime in the same way now in airports in which they have stations that are, quote, quiet rooms. Everybody needs a little quiet space. Everybody needs to take that digital detox and put those devices away. Because when your device runs out of juice, what do? You plug it in, right? What do you do to the human body when it runs out of juice? Do you drink an energy drink? Do you have a snack bar? Do you have a candy bar? Do you increase your blood sugar? What do? You can't plug it in and recharge it, but it's sending you a message. And that message is, please help me. Please do something to give me a break. Please give me that little bit of balance. And we can overcome challenges. Almost 2 years ago, a colleague and I set out on a mission to discover what nurse leaders really think about the nursing shortage, about workforce, about workplace well-being, and about what the real issues are. We interviewed 50 nurse leaders from across the country, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to you, because I think your perspective is totally different, Martina. But we interviewed 50 nurse colleagues from across the country. And from that, we discovered nuggets of gold. There was such gold in those hills, it was unbelievable. And what we found is that nurses really want to have a voice. They want to be heard. And they wanted to share their knowledge related to the workforce and workplace, related to well-being, and the wisdom, what we have learned about what has happened in the past and what lessons we can take forward. What our youngest generations tell us, because now in many workplaces, there are in fact 5 generations at one time. I'm even familiar with a couple of places where those generations are a granddaughter and a grandmother working in the same institution. So there are multiple generations at the same time, and we can overcome it. And the issues that surfaced, we found, were stress, burnout and compassion fatigue, alarm fatigue, which you seem to have taken care of, strategies for self-care and nurse well-being, and peer networks and mentorship. Again, coaching, that's what people want. So this is a book that my colleague and I are publishing. We're really excited about it in October. If you want information about the contents or the contributing authors, and there are 26 of them, we'll have a flyer outside that you can see. You can't buy it because there's nothing for sale, nor would I want to sell it to you, but you can explore the website and learn about it and learn what these nurses have said. And I'm really proud of the fact that 13% of our contributors are, of course, male nurses. There's a huge section on advanced practice. We have covered every single aspect, so we're really thrilled about that. But what we find is that the big challenge is one in terms of stress. Stress from uncertainty, from what's going to happen next, where is this going to take us, what can we do? What is our next step to get beyond where we are now to truly create an engaging environment in which people want to come and they want to stay? But I have my own personal philosophy that I've discussed with Regina, and that is not recruitment first. It is retention first. And we'll hear more about that. But first of all, burnout and compassion fatigue. Burnout causes you to stress out, and then it causes you to lash out. And that's where we get incivility. That's where we come into problems with bullying, issues where people don't feel respected, where they don't feel as if they're appreciated within the environment, where they absolutely don't feel as if they belong. And remember, they want to belong. So we don't want to get to the point of lash out. All of you, regardless of whatever basic nursing program you were in, had some element of psych nursing. And probably one of the greatest factors that you remember is that concept of displacement. So the individual is at work and they get hollered at and they take it home to their partner and they holler at that person, and then that person hollers at the kid, and the kid kicks the dog, and the dog does whatever else the dog does to retaliate. But it is displacing that hostility. That's not what we want within our chosen profession. That is not what we want at all. We want to move way beyond those concepts and really move into one of respect, a culture that truly, truly matters. So let's look at this video of the ultimate stress experience. It's a quick one, but I think you'll appreciate it. Code Blue. As a healthcare professional, I've heard the alarm often and reacted every time. But that room number, shocked, I realized that the patient was my spouse. The overwhelming stress was palpable, a roller coaster of emotions. And those agonizing moments, I summoned every ounce of strength to save his life. Miraculously, he survived. And 40 years later, he still sees the brilliant white light he encountered during those critical moments. A glimmer of hope that his time had not yet come. This was a surreal, stressful moment. So I ask you, number one, the husband is still here because I was the chair of the code team. I was the druggie who pulled it all together. But the husband is still here to talk about it some 40 years later, which is really a pretty amazing experience. And I'll tell you something that'll bring a smile to your face. Our granddaughter, who's 13, subscribes to my YouTube channel. She recommended me to the folks at her school that they should all watch my YouTube channel. And her best friend, Pippa, watches that channel. And at Julia's bat mitzvah a couple of weeks ago, Pippa came up to me and said, "I had no idea that you were married to such a young dude." She thought the guy in the picture was the real husband, and then she had seen him at lacrosse games and at other games, but she never put the two together, and she thought I was suddenly married to some really young dude. Or maybe I was extremely old. I'm not really quite sure. I'm not quite sure. I have no idea. So assess yourself and your stress levels. Do you have regular breaks during the day? Can you take a bio break if you need one? Do you sit around with a 13-ounce or a 32-ounce bladder wondering when it's ever going to get a chance to empty? Or do you not think about it at all because you don't bother to hydrate because you know that a bio break is not in your job description? It's not part of your process. Do you? Are you able to focus or schedule quiet time just for yourself? Do you ever feel as if work and life are a blur? Especially during the pandemic, when a lot of people were off-site, sometimes that kitchen counter became the workstation. It became the everything place. It became the homework. It became the meal prep. Perhaps it became your telehealth station and there was no privacy for others. How stressed did you need to become in order to maintain some level of engagement? Do you feel engaged? Do you feel engaged? Look around you. Give me a shout out. How many people feel engaged? That's huge. That is a huge number in any organization. And do you feel valued? I hope that I see every single hand go up. Do you feel valued? Maybe not at home. They don't even notice you. You're virtually, you're like in the Broadway show Chicago, okay? Maybe you're invisible. But certainly at work, do you feel valued? Do you feel seen? Do you feel as if you have a voice and that you can speak up and you can speak out and that you can be heard? I hope that the answer is a resounding yes. But self-care is not selfish. I had to learn the hard way, doing the work that I was doing, working abroad, missing a plane, having to go back to the hospital for a couple of days to work, which didn't really bother me, but recognizing in an aha moment that if I didn't get a life, I wasn't going to have one. I had missed a lot of the growth opportunities of my own 3 kids, and I didn't want to miss grandkids because I thought I don't want to botch it twice. So think about the concept of self-care as not being selfish, and at the same time, no as not a complete sentence. Not no in which, gosh, I really can't come, my grandmother passed away, and people start to wonder, well, how many times does that person's grandmother pass, or how many grandmothers can they possibly have? We all use that excuse in school. But self-care is not selfish. So when we look at the concept of every meeting we go into, every encounter that we have, what are the thoughts in my head? What's running through my mind? How am I thinking? What is my energy level? Am I hyped up? Am I ready to go? Am I in my compassionate, mild, calm pose because of the conversation that we're about to have? What is the energy level that I bring to the table? Am I doom and gloom and woe is me, or am I somebody who really gets it and wants to be seen as one who wants to be involved? What is my mood? What is my mindset? Am I bringing my troubles from home back into the workplace? Did the baby not sleep all night and therefore I didn't sleep all night and I feel miserable? And it's going to be reflected in the work and the outputs that I bring? And what is my perspective? Am I going into this meeting thinking this is going to be a win for all? Everyone is going to benefit from what happens today. Each one of you, if you came into this meeting with the right perspective, is thinking, well, I'm really going to get some strong takeaway points that I can use in my practice and in my life, and that this organization is so committed to my personal and professional growth that I'm here to stay. I want to be a part of this organization. I want to call this home, right? That's a perspective that you want. So how did we get here? We got here because of overwork. We got here partially because of the pandemic. We got here because of lack of staffing, because of the commitments to which we overcommitted, to saying yes to too many things, not knowing that if you say no, that allows time for a yes for something you really want to do. But if you fill your time up with things that you don't want to do, you lose. I consider myself to be in this stage that sometimes in the academy we refer to as preferment. It means I work when I want, with whom I want, when I want, on what I want. But I'm picking and choosing, and it might be 40 hours a week. It might sometimes, I know my husband thinks this, it might be 80 hours a week, and you think, what kind of a preference is that? But it is on things that I really want to do. It is on work that truly matters to me and outcomes that will make me feel good about the contributions that I have made. And that is so, so important. So ensuring that those things to which we commit really will fill our bucket is so vital to our success. But sometimes we just run on empty, and we shouldn't be. It's about the workforce, it's about crisis, it's about fatigue, it's about psychological safety. If you're familiar with the work of Amy Edmondson from Harvard, you recognize the term psychological safety as a term that often Joint Commission refers to as the no shaming, no blaming. Don't blame the person, blame the process. Look at the process, explore what went on to bring us to this place, and let's see what we can do better to make that better. That's psychological safety. That's about the organization as a whole and about the work environment. But what about emotional safety? Joe Tai from Iowa, who's one of our contributors, often talks about the emotional safety aspect, the individual aspect, the what's in it for me. Do I feel emotionally safe at work? Do I feel as if people are lashing out at me or accusing me of things or taking me to task for something that I didn't even do? Or even on the opposite end, rewarding me for something that I did do and for which someone else is perhaps taking credit. We're going to grow the workforce and hopefully convert some of those travelers into real members of the team, committed members of the team, by creating that kind of an organization. But overwork leads us to overwhelm, and we need to overcome the overwhelm with physical, emotional, and mental health programs that are in place. So how do we overcome the overwhelm? What do we do when we're overwhelmed? I know what I do. I work more hours. I try to squeeze more hours into the day. I'll share with you the fact that in my day, just like yours, I'll bet, there are only 24 hours. How many hours do you have in your day? Anybody have more than 24? Does anyone, do you really? Does anyone have the magic formula to get to the next level where I'm gonna have more hours in the day? Does anyone have that process? Because if you've mastered it, I'll bet you there are 350 plus people in this room who want to know the secret to your success. But I know what I do when I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to take you back a minute. What should we do when we're overwhelmed? Have you ever seen at Staples, or what kind of office supply stores do you have? You have Staples, right? They bought everybody else, didn't they? You have that little red reset button and you push reset. Have you ever tried to push reset on yourself? And if you have, did it work? It doesn't work, does it? It doesn't really work. You're supposed to step back, examine in your mind, what made me do this? What am I thinking? What could I possibly be thinking that is destroying my mind, my body, my spirit, and not allowing me to be whole? Just based upon the fact that I'm not listening to what I'm being told. So is there anybody here who has examined what makes you do it? Who has challenged your assumptions? Anybody done that? You don't sometimes think, what on earth was I thinking? In our family, we call it PPD. It means post-purchase dissonance. I'm not sure there's a real CPT code for it or that you can bill for it, but someone, usually this someone, buys something and then thinks, should I have bought this? Should I have bought that? I remember one time 3 cars in 1 week, depending upon who was going to deliver the car first and which one did I really want and was it the right car. It's not the same thing as obsessive compulsive disorder, but trust me, after so many years, it feels like a disorder to those around you. It feels like one that you don't want to catch. But it's PPD, and I notice my son has it, and now I see that 3 of my grandsons have it as well. The other one is not biological, so maybe it doesn't pass through. And then do you ever just take a deep breath? So I have a slide up here that resembles one that you put up, Regina. How can I help? What can I do? What can my organization do to make me feel whole? I love the place I work. I love those with whom I work. What can I do, let's hold that a minute, to make it better? So if you had to think differently about how someone can help you or what you need, would you be willing, would you be able to speak up and speak out, to rise up and say, this is what I need and this is how I need help? And you're nodding your head, so now I'm going to volunteer you. I'm not allowed to walk that far, I kind of have to stay over here. Please tell me what you would do and how would you think differently about it? What would make you do something different? What would make you speak out? You can stand up and tell us about it. I think Sam wanted to bring you a mic, but I don't want to really embarrass you.
I'm so blessed. I'm at JFK University Medical Center, and I am so blessed to have the leadership that I have that literally say to me, whatever you need, just ask. So I'm very fortunate. So I've been able to, we needed more staffing, we needed support, and I was able to ask and get it.
And what is your name?
Oh, no.
You don't have one?
No, my name is Annie Lemura.
Annie, okay. Now he's bringing you a mic. Annie, tell us about it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Say, oh yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh yes, I'm thrilled. Go Annie, go Annie. Let's hear it for Annie. Whoa. Let's hear it for Annie. Tell us your story.
I'm dying. I'm a new leader at JFK University Medical Center, and I have the pulmonary unit. And as I arrived, I noticed that we needed more staffing and more support. I simply reached out to my leaders who said, whatever you need, please do your assessment, whatever you need, we're here for you, and we're here for your team. So we did that, and our leadership, and Dr. Sammartino is right here, who is my direct leader, leaned in and said, we're here to support you. And so the team is thriving, and Sheetal Patel, who's our assistant manager right here, I have such a great team. But all I had to do was ask.
All she had to do was ask. Did you hear that? I think Steve has a gift for you, don't you? Yeah, he does. He has a gift for you. Because you spoke up and spoke out, he's going to give you a copy of Think Differently. It doesn't sound like your thinking is disturbed in any way.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Enjoy. Thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate that. And thank you for the mic, Mike. Or Eddie. I don't know. Everyone here is named Mike or Eddie. Did you notice that? Did you notice that? I once brought a delegation from Moscow to Rochester, and they were at the University of Rochester Strong Memorial when Strong Memorial existed before it was merged with whomever else. And there were 7 nurses in the delegation. They were all named Marina. Every single one. What is that chance of happening? And we named them Marina. A, B, C, D. We didn't know what to do. It could have been 1, 2, 3. But everybody was named Marina. In this organization, we have lots of folks with the same name that must have been popular around the same year. And by the way, when I asked you your name and you didn't tell me, I was thinking back to the days when in my house, as the middle of 5, my mother called us all Harry, and there was only one Harry. Everybody else was a girl, but she called everybody Harry. She didn't even know our names. Be proud that you have one. Okay, so how about from this side of the room? How can I help? I feel like I'm in a box and I have a line with as far as I can go. How can I help? Have you ever asked that question of someone to tell them what it is you need? Or has someone ever asked that question of you? What can you do for me? Can you help me out with something? I need some help. So you keep nodding, Miss Face behind the mask. It's time for you to have a mic. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Joanne. I'm the nurse leader.
Stand up. Thank you.
Bay Medical Center.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah. So again, as my colleague said, we're very blessed to have Jane as our leader. Our direct leaders are here with us today. You know, I'm like personally, I had an issue taking a break and saying no. So that was my issue, and I think I'm getting burned out. So recently, my boss, Ronnie, actually, they're very good. Jane also, they advocate for us to take a break. So I've been, and my team was allowed to go to conferences. Those times we take opportunity to do more of a team bonding I'm blessed with a unit where I had, I think at some point, 5 quarters of zero turnover, when the ICU nationally has about 19.9% of turnover rates. I was blessed with a very experienced team and the team that really wants to stay. So I think if I need to advocate for my team to have a job security, feeling that they have a place in Raritan Bay, I would do that. And Jane is always listening to us and allow our voice to be heard. And she is not afraid to go back to where they should. Like Regina, I think, she allows us to be heard and listened to. So I think that's very important. And I think that made my team stayed. We don't get the highest salary around the state, but my teams chose Raritan Bay and choose to be there because they felt like it's where they work with family, and that's how we I think, as an organization, made them feel.
Okay, thank you. I think Steve has something for you too as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So the issue is one in which we all have faced challenges. One of the biggest challenges that we get as presenters is getting people to speak up and speak out, getting people to engage in the conversation with us. So rather than doing Q&A at the end, I always do Q&A somewhere in the middle, because I want to find out if I'm covering all the bases, if I'm making sure that you are being heard, and that I'm listening to you and meeting your needs. So does anybody have any questions that you'd like to shout out? Be prepared, because he'll bring a mic. But does anyone have any questions now from what we've covered thus far that we need to cover or move on to? Because if not, I'm going to move on. So just let me know. Anything? We're good so far? Okay, we're good so far. So the nurse engagement is the ultimate retention tool. You don't need a retention tool if you have a great engagement program, if people feel as if they belong, if they feel as if they're being heard, if they feel as if they're being listened to. We must place retention ahead of recruitment. Because if we recruit and we get lots of people on board who sign up but don't stay, what does that mean? And one of the things that we often neglect to do is to do a stay interview. Everybody does exit interviews. Everybody says, gee, tell me why it is you're leaving. Well, my husband got transferred, my partner got transferred, whatever happened. I'm moving closer to family. Or I just can't stand you, I can't stand to work with you, I don't want to be here. We hope we never hear that. But does anybody ever give a stay interview? You're there, partway through your tenure, and your boss or your partner, because I prefer to work with people, not for them, comes to you and says, what is it that makes you stay? What is it, Terry, or what is it, Sue Weaver, that brought you to this organization that makes you stay? What is it, Donna, that keeps you in your very complex role that makes you want to stay? To work with those foreign nurse candidates, to move us to the next level. Why do you stay? And chances are you stay because of the culture, because culture breeds retention. This is the infectious disease that you want to spread. If you transform your culture, it means that you have great leaders, because companies don't create culture, leaders do. Companies don't retain employees, managers do. So we're all familiar with magnet culture. Congratulations on your status. I think it's pretty amazing. On one of my magnet visits, I will share with you that I took a dog sled ride for a home care visit in Anchorage, Alaska. I think that's beyond what is expected, but I did it. And my partner was a nurse from Miami who didn't even have a coat and had to borrow one to go to Alaska in February. But what will it take? It will take autonomy and decision making. It will take continuing education and the opportunity to upskill, like the LPN pool. It brought me back to the days when I worked on Ward 1 and I had 40 patients all to myself with an orderly and an LPN. The LPN happened to be the mother of my roommate. Had there been opportunities for those LPNs to move on and to move up and to rise up, I think about one of my contributing authors. Her name is Ino Upkang. She is amazing, and she's in chapter 1. She came from Nigeria years ago. She came as a nurse's aide. Talk about the workforce. She has been in every single role in the workforce. She was an aide. She was an assistant something else. She became an LPN. She became an RN. She became a BSN. She became an MSN, and now she has a doctoral in nursing, and she's a professor. She has been in every single role. And her true joy comes mostly from being back at the bedside, from working with others, from working with patients, from bringing them what they need, to really experiencing the joy that comes only from knowing that your purpose is alive, that you have brought to the table what was expected of you and so much more. That when you entered this profession, whether you were 17 years old when I was, or maybe a little bit older, or maybe as a second career or third career professional, or maybe just as a brand new profession at age 40, that you recognize why you came to this profession. What was your why? What was your purpose? What was it that brought you here, and what was it that makes you stay? And this brings us to the whole concept of a personalized engagement plan. It's part of that journey. What are the steps that I will take? What is my action plan? What am I going to do to make a difference? What do I do now that has reaped rewards for the organization and for me as a whole, for my unit, for my staff, for my team, for my people? What is it I'm now doing that I can replicate? When I look at some of those pilot studies that were addressed, and I'm still like front and center thinking about those innovation awards that were just announced last week. There is no reason why you can't take every accolade in the book just based upon what you've done so far. You have a plan in place. But think about your own personal plan for sustaining engagement. What is it? It takes action planning. It takes implementation. It takes strategy. It takes design thinking. It takes ideation and innovation and creation and testing and pilot and evaluation and then reevaluating. It takes all of the pieces in place that are going to make you whole. But you can't do it alone. You have to do it as a team. You must do it as a team. So let's look at the concept of retention metrics. Okay? Let me take you back a minute. Are you familiar with an author by the name of James Clear? Anyone ever hear of this gentleman? He's the author of a book called Atomic Habits. Maybe if you're not into atoms, maybe that's not your kind of a habit. But he's the author of a book called Atomic Habits, and I'm going to read his quote. He says, there are myths about how long it takes to build a new habit. Is it 21 days? Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days, or is it more? The truth is that habits are created from repetition and from frequency. He says the next 30 days can pass, and you can do something once, or you can do it 100 times. Is that what makes it a habit? James goes on to say, how long does it take to build a new habit is not the right question. It's the wrong question, which is why you'll enjoy thinking differently, because it makes you ask the right question at the right time to get the right answer, to allow you to solve for X by knowing what it is you're going after. He says that's the wrong question. The assumption is, how long until it's easy? Is anything about your careers easy? Did you join nursing? Did you join this community because it was easy? I know, for one, that you didn't join for the pay. Because I tried to talk my grandson into something the other day when he said he was working at a country club being a runner and he was making less than minimum wage. And that he needed to collect a lot of tips in order to get to minimum wage, and he needed more money. And I didn't want to tell him about my first nursing salary that was working a lot of hours, and I don't believe there was any such thing as overtime and overpay, and if you work 7 days a week, if you work 2 shifts a day, yes, you got paid extra money, but that was about it. But it was not a lot of money, so we didn't come to this profession to be millionaires or millionairesses. We just didn't. It wasn't about that. So he says the assumption is how long until it's easy? How long until I don't have to put in any effort? Which is a good question. How long until I no longer have to even think about it? And then he says, the honest answer to how long does it take to build a habit is forever. Because once you've stopped doing it, it's no longer a habit. He tells the reader that habits are not a finish line to be crossed. They are a lifestyle to be lived. Think of your career as a lifestyle to be lived. When we look at retention metrics, we look at things like turnover rates, we look at retention rates, we look at vacancies, we look at time to fill positions, when in fact, what we should be looking at is a different kind of KPI. KPI, instead of that, can be key people indicators, key people interactions, or kindness, presence, interaction. Wouldn't that be something to measure? These terms shift the focus from quantitative metrics to qualitative measures of engagement, of empathy, and certainly of relationships, of connectivity. So it's not just specific, measurable, and actionable. It's not just patient satisfaction scores, and it's not just productivity levels, because some of us are going to be so much more productive than others. I'm sharing with you what I call my engagement checklist. It has a capacity for leadership, communication and onboarding, recognition, and rewards, and professional development. Take this, and it should be in your handout as well, and go back and assess your own unit. How do you measure up with your own self-measurement in terms of these parameters? Where are you on the leadership side? Do you provide visible support? Do you provide resources? What do you do? And then I ask you to give me some feedback, if you will. Again, another QR code. Where would we be without QR codes? I remember the first one that I saw, I think it was immediately past COVID, and I think it was at my grandson's COVID bar mitzvah, where there were only 12 people there. And each child brought their family members, and they sat at separate tables, and everybody had masks. And the giveaways, the tchotchkes, were masks with his face on them and hand sanitizer with his face on the bottle. That was it. It was very small, it was very intimate, but it introduced me to QR codes because that's how we had to read the menu. When it first happened, I had no clue. Many of us were clueless at that time, but now QR codes are a thing of the present. So scan this QR code or go to this site and enter the code ENGAGE when you're prompted to do so. And if you answer just 3 or 4 small questions, you will receive a special playbook that was created just for you, all about engagement. Okay? That's my feedback mechanism. I really appreciate whatever feedback you give me, because remember I said, feedback is not 6 months after the program, or some places where I speak, like Sigma, for example, where they give you the results 10 months after the program. It's so much better to know how you did and what the level of engagement was with your audience before you even leave the platform. So, today's new workforce. I talked a little bit about the generations. You're going to hear about that later today. I talked a little bit about incivility. You're going to hear more about that. Does Gen Z want the same thing as the boomer or the post-boomer? Do you have post-boomers working in your setting? Do you have people from all of those generations? What does that workforce look like? What are the expectations? Are benefits a privilege, or are they something that is truly expected? Is free parking, is childcare, or other things that are nurse-centric, are they expectations, or are they part of the total package? Do you notice that when people come to you now and they have a different feel for what's expected of them, as well as what they plan to give, that it's different? Does anybody ever want to work a shift again? Does anybody really want to work 12 hours or 16 hours or more hours? Wouldn't they rather be home? So in order to lead today's mindset, today's workforce, we have to shift the entire mindset. It's not about cost, and it's not the impact of turnover. It's not about who's the flight risk, because everyone is at some point a flight risk, maybe due to family obligations or something else. But today's new workforce has a different mindset and totally different expectations. You need to role model what they want. And you do that by learning more about your team, by asking questions and stopping to listen, by listening with intention, not thinking about what's my response going to be to this question and how can I get out of here quickly, but to truly, truly listening, because there is a reason why you were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, and it's to listen more and speak less. As my daughter, who's a clinical psychologist, she's actually our daughter, but I take credit for her, as she often says, you need to connect before you correct. That's the clinical psychologist in her. Connect before you correct. Connect with your people and listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. So listen with intention, encourage best ideas, and help your people to play to their strengths. Because after you go through the Core Values Index, which is from Taylor Protocols, you're going to know your core strengths and the strengths of those members of your team who surround you. And you can play to the strengths of each other and really maximize your results just based upon what you learn about one another. So what are your takeaways from today? Have you learned anything at all about the concept of culture and vision and mission and how it all is reflected in the big scheme of engagement, about unlocking nurse engagement? Because we know that empowered nurses create empowered care. And I invite you to take perhaps the first steps toward creating a more engaged team. Initiate open dialogue with your nursing staff. Implement feedback mechanisms if they're not in place. And feedback meaning not 360-degree and not once a year, but ongoing. Recognize and celebrate their achievements and their successes. Make their wins your wins. And together, let's build a culture of engagement that truly allows us to be better than we already are, to reach from good to great, to reach a whole new level of productivity and horizon that makes this, for each of us, for everyone who comes to our space, a completely engaging experience. And then again, we just have some ANCC things, copyright, references, etc. I want to thank you. I especially want to thank your entire team. What an amazing organization. You should be so proud to be a part of a culture that embraces you and values what you bring to the table, that puts a big picture out there of what is possible and then allows it to not only be probable, but truly, truly possible, to really make things happen. And I was so honest when I started out and said to you, I am in awe of the innovations that you have created. And if I don't see a lot of your organization listed on the application process, I will truly be amazed, because you have a message that needs to be shared with the masses. You are keeping the best kept secret here within the Northern Jersey area. And everybody else needs to know what's happening here and why they too should be a member of your truly engaged team. Thank you so much for welcoming me today.